Here's what you need to know about game day, this historic matchup coming up this weekend, and we're so excited to have College Game Day back in our state for the second time this year. They were down at Auburn earlier. Doors open for students at 7:30. 7:30 in the morning, doors open for students. The general public can go. You don't have to be enrolled in school to go. You can get in. The door opens at 8 o'clock for the general public to get in there. 9 to 11 game day is on. The game's on ESPN as well at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's never been anything like it in basketball in our state.
That is true. Rece Davis, who has seen a lot of basketball in our state, I'm sure would agree. Hello, Rece Davis. How are you today, my friend?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Doing fantastic. As a guy that grew up in this state, went to school in this state, I got to imagine seeing Alabama and Auburn play the first 1-2 SEC game ever feels kind of strange to you.
It's, it's spectacular and a testament to what both programs have done and the emphasis that they've put on making sure that they have elite basketball programs. And, the rivalry has been great for people in the state and fans of both schools and maybe even around the SEC to some degree for a number of years, dating back to Barkley and Person and, Buck and Enimo and, McDyess and Sprewell and Ori and all of those guys that they've had. But now this rivalry has evolved and taken a step up because, we've had kick six and the Gravedigger, but we've never had 1 versus 2 in football. And now we've got it in basketball. And, they're going to meet at least one more time after this. And both teams are certainly capable of going to the Final Four and maybe winning a national championship, though certainly the tournament's a bit of a crapshoot. But what's going to happen Saturday is, for the first time, the first 1 versus 2 meeting between these two is going to be special. And we're looking forward. We're hoping it's a raucous environment. The students and the fans gave us a great show the last time we were in Alabama last year. First time we'd ever been there for basketball. And we're hoping they make it even bigger and better this year. And I appreciate you guys letting people know when they can get in. And Jay will be out shooting. You can probably, win a few C notes from him if you can hit some shots. He's pretty good at that kind of stuff. So we're looking forward to getting there. It's going to be fun.
Rece, Coleman Coliseum has been kind of a punching bag for Alabama fans for decades now. And, we hear that good tickets this weekend, $1,000 just to get in to watch a regular season basketball game. Just go back to your years as an undergrad in Tuscaloosa. And I would assume that was the Wimp Sanderson era. What were games like going as a student?
It was, look, we had a core of us that went to virtually every game and went to a lot of road games. They were really good when I was in school there. That was Derek McKee and Farmer Gottfried, Terry Connor, Michael Ansley, Buck Johnson, not with the championship team, but before that. So, they had really, really good teams. Won the SEC when I was in school there. Went to the tournament the first 3 years that I was in school there. So it was it was sort of the heyday of Alabama basketball, in my judgment, prior to this current one. So it's, there were dedicated fans, but I think there's more of a widespread appeal. Going to Final Fours and winning SEC championships will do that, and that's something that Nate's done very well there.
We got a kick six highlight in the basketball game last night, previewing the showdown coming up this weekend. A lot of Alabama fans reacted, "Where's the Gravedigger?" You got to book in those together. Just answer this question, because Dusty and Danny on Sirius XM asked me this morning. We don't call it the Iron Bowl of basketball, though, right? Do we call it that?
I never have. No.
Yeah.
I've never referred to it that way.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Not in common vernacular. Look, if it somehow pops out of my mouth on Saturday, they'll say, "See, you didn't tell the truth." But just like in the normal context of conversation about Alabama Auburn basketball, I haven't referred to it that way necessarily.
We used to get a big sellout because we used to give the ODK trophy out to the winning team at the halftime of this game in different places. You remember that, right? That's gone now. We don't even do that anymore.
They don't do that anymore?
I don't think so. I don't think we do it anymore.
I don't think we do.
Yeah, basketball's so popular now, they don't even have to do that anymore.
I see what you. Yeah, even if they did it, no one would care.
Right. You're right.
I wouldn't say no one would care, but it certainly would be an also receiving votes situation for Saturday.
It used to be the reason people went to that game.
Right. Yeah, to go see it and to gloat a little bit. That's a very fair point. But these two teams stand on their own. If you go back and I was just looking at something this morning. The last 8, I think I'm right on this, and if I'm not, I'm sure someone will correct me. The last 8 basketball championship trophies, regular season or tournament, that the SEC has handed out, Auburn or Alabama have won 6 of them. And of the last 5 NCAA tournaments, counting the one year that there was no tournament, one of the teams has been in the Final Four during that span. So I think it's really elevated it to the point where it stands on its own. And, both teams play an entertaining brand of basketball to watch, which I think is also important. When you have so much competition for eyeballs out there, you want to be fun to watch. And I think it's probably fair to say that, in many years prior to Nate's arrival, Alabama wasn't really fun to watch. It was certainly true of Auburn, prior to Bruce's arrival. And, it was funny. We were watching the Auburn game last night, and when they mentioned that Bruce had been there 11 years, like, wait, what? Hasn't Bruce just been there he's been there 4.5 years or something, it seems like. And Oates is there now. Well, I think he's in his 6th season, which is kind of mind-boggling as quickly as it's happened. But both guys have done a great job, and they've, Kentucky will always be the gold standard of SEC basketball, and they've got an excellent team this year, historically and traditionally. But at the moment, while I think Florida's as good as anybody, at the moment, the standard bearers are Alabama and Auburn because they're collecting all the trophies.
ESPN's Rece Davis with us. You'll see him from Coleman Coliseum on ESPN's Game Day coming up Saturday as Alabama and Auburn battle 1 versus 2, number 1 Auburn, number 2 Alabama on ESPN. Rece is on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. The other storyline on this, Rece, after both teams won last night, is that the winner of this game with 6 games remaining in conference play will be the outright leader. And I would ask you, from your talks with Lenardi and people like that, do you feel as though the SEC regular season champion not only is a lock 1, but maybe the lock overall 1?
It sort of depends on how it goes. And when I say that, I mean, you look at the Alabama's remaining schedule, not that Auburn's is a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination, not in this league, which is as good and as deep as any league in the history of the sport right now. But Alabama's remaining schedule is just a landmine to get through. Now, a few losses, should they suffer them, probably won't knock them off that one line unless it, be multiple losses. But I think it's certainly the winner of this game, winner of the regular season in the SEC, whoever that might be, would certainly have a great opportunity to be the number 1 overall seed. If you look at there's one of the analytics guys in basketball that did a thing recently about advocating for a change from the current net system to a system he had devised called quality wins and quality losses. And then where you land on a graph, higher up the ranks you are if you have quality wins and quality losses, as opposed to just compiling a good record. Auburn is like off the chart. They're like standing up there way above everybody else. And there's a little bit of a drop off. And then Alabama, and they're above everybody else. So those two, and Duke's close to Alabama, in that regard. But the resumes that these two have put together, however you want to put it, I think is really going to serve them well when the selection committee comes out with the seedings. And I would expect at least 2 SEC teams to get number 1 seeds, and I think there's a great chance for 3. And I would suspect that third one might end up being Florida, because Florida, even though they continue to have people get banged up, and it happened to them again last night, but they appear, not just because they beat Auburn, they just appear to be doing this. If people are watching, I'm moving my hand upward as if I'm and they are really good. They're really big. And so I think the SEC has 3 teams, in my judgment, that can win the national championship.
I know you got to wait to see the matchups and what the draw looks like, but do you lean right now? Because it sounds like you believe, which a lot of people do, Alabama, Auburn, the best 2 teams in college basketball. Do you think, because I don't know if I've ever seen this before, with credible people filling out brackets, that you will have both Alabama and Auburn going to San Antonio and playing in the Final Four?
Matchups would be there, but if I were filling out a bracket now, I'd probably say yes. And look, I want to, And I'm not trying to rain on any parade. I want to build this up. We're bringing game day there, but Duke is really good, also, and Florida's really good. Houston's good too. I don't think Houston's as good offensively as those other teams, but I certainly think that the SEC could have 2 or 3 teams in the Final Four. But we should point this out, and I want to get ahead of this because you look historically, even at conferences who have been the best by any measure over the course of a season, historically good conferences, there are times when those conferences have a little bit of a middling record in the NCAA tournament. What are the reasons for that? I mean, I think everybody knows it's human nature. It's like, we're supposed to win this game. How in the world are we only up by 2 against a 13 seed or against a 15, 16 seed? 16 is more rare. And you start feeling game pressure and you get tight, and we're supposed to win the game, and then bad things happen to you. And I think even down the line with the SEC teams, there could be a little bit of maybe not overlook, but a feeling that you're supposed to win the game, and sometimes that impedes performance. So the fact that the SEC is historically good is not going to be validated or invalidated by tournament performance. But if they all perform to their capabilities, I don't think it's crazy at all to say that they could have 2 or 3 teams in the Final Four, and certainly that includes Auburn and Alabama.
Yeah, you never know, because I'm sure Dan Hurley pointed his finger and said 2 rings, like he did last night when it gets to be bracket time. Hey, Aden Holloway is going to be a story. I can't wait to see how he handles it. Because he's got to be in the right headspace, how the Auburn players handle it. He's playing fantastic basketball right now. What do you make of what Holloway has brought with him to Tuscaloosa?
Well, I mean, the style of play suits him, and he would have been successful had he chosen to stay at Auburn because he's a really good player. But I do think that this style of play is better for Aden, and just as an individual player. But what you said is right. What he's brought to them is creativity on the drive and excellent perimeter shooting. He's shooting like 50% or something in conference play from behind the arc. He's a tremendous shooter. Gives him another guy to space the floor. He's been a good steadying guy as I think LeBaron Fowler, that guy's just a menace. But when he's had some freshman lulls, I thought Holloway has done a really good job along with Youngblood and kind of steadying the ship. And when they're all clicking as they were last night, they're really, really difficult to guard. But I think Holloway's been sensational. It'll be difficult for him, I think, to stay in that right headspace, but probably more difficult on that last Saturday of the regular season when the jungle's really going to give it to him, I'm sure. So I'm sure he'll anticipate that and be ready for it. But just from an internal emotional standpoint, it'll be important for him to be on a good, steady, even keel on Saturday, because they need him to produce offensively and to provide them with a consistent perimeter shooting.
Not only is it the SEC's first ever 1-2 matchup, it will be game day's first 1-2 matchup since the Tennessee-Memphis game we talked about the other day.
Wow.
So even Rece in the game doesn't get this very often.
Was that 15 years ago?
2008.
Yeah, I thought we had another one, and I was mistaken about that. I thought it was our first one since Indiana-Michigan in 2013, but I guess as it turns out, I think Michigan was 1. I think Indiana was 3. But in my mind, that was 1 versus 2, but it's not. You're right. It's the Tennessee-Memphis game, which was also Bruce Pearl.
That's right.
Involved in that. So whenever game day gets 1 versus 2, Bruce is there. So we're looking forward to seeing him on Saturday.
Yeah, 9:00 Central Time on ESPN. See Rece and the crew there from Coleman. Thank you very much for the time, Rece. Always great catching up with you.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, buddy. Take care. Rece with us on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline.